So, right. So today we continue with Mark chapter 5, verse 21 onwards. Now, we are going to see what is called a sandwich narrative. That is, when you have one story running, in between you have one more story coming in. So both of them are connected in some way. How they are connected, I will just tell you. Both of them are healing miracles by Jesus. So here we have now first a man called Jairus. So when Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a crowd gathered about him, and he was beside the sea. Now Jesus is now beginning to speak, and suddenly then came one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and seeing Jesus, he fell at his feet and besought him. Now, first of all, you notice that this man is a ruler of the synagogue. That means he has a very important position and he is a Jew. Now, he is heard about Jesus and he is in a desperate situation. His 12-year-old daughter is at the point of death according to Mark, but according to Matthew and Luke, she is already dead. So here is a very desperate situation, and this man has no qualms about falling down at Jesus' feet. Although he himself is a powerful man, a man under tremendous authority, yet when he is in a position like this where he is very desperate, he doesn't mind falling down at Jesus' feet and beseeching him, because he knows that Jesus has the power to heal. So he comes to Jesus and he says, "Come and lay your hands on her so that she may be made well and live." Now, the Jews always had this custom of the laying on of hands. When a prophet or a priest laid his hands on someone, they would recover, they would heal, they would, come back. So this was something that was always there in the Jewish custom. And so he invites Jesus also as a rabbi to come and lay his hands on his daughter. That means this man, number one, has heard about Jesus, and number two, this man has faith in him, faith in Jesus, that Jesus can do it for him. And Jesus went with him. So Jesus just stops doing whatever he's doing. He doesn't continue his preaching now. He goes along with him. And a great crowd followed him and thronged about him. So this is the story. So while this is going on, we are interspersed with another story of a woman. There was a woman who had a flow of blood for 12 years. Oh, this woman has probably got vaginal bleeding because of fibroids. And she's been having this problem for 12 years. Mark mentions this 12 years because he also wants to link it with a girl who is now dead. She is also 12 years. And 12 is a very significant number. So he mentions it explicitly. He's been having a flow of blood for 12 years and who had suffered much under many physicians and had spent all that she had and was no better but rather grew worse. She had heard the reports about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his garment, for she said, "If I touch even his garments, I shall be made well." And immediately the hemorrhage ceased, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. So here we see a woman who's heard about Jesus. She's not seen him before, but she has tremendous faith based on what she has heard. So now she knows that this is her only resort. She has tried everyone, she has tried everything. Instead of getting better, she's only got worse. No cure, no remedy. So finally she thinks of Jesus and she says, "Yes, let me give it one last shot. Let me go to this person called Jesus." And she knows that even if she touches his garment, see her faith, tremendous faith. He says, "If I touch even his garments, I'll be made well." And what happens to Jesus? Now, so many people touching Jesus, pressing on him in the crowd, but Jesus can sense that there is some power going out. No, I think this is something supernatural, no? Because ordinary people, we don't normally sense something like this. Jesus was able to sense that somebody was being healed, somebody was uh, exercising faith, and thereby his power was going out to them. Jesus could sense that. Jesus was so sensitive that he could sense that power was going out. So Jesus, perceiving in himself that power had gone forth from him, immediately turned about in the crowd and said, "Who touched my garments?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing around you, and yet you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had been done to her, came in fear and trembling and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. Now, there are two reasons why this woman came in fear and trembling. Number one, most important, the Levitical law said that an unclean woman should not touch anyone or anything, because whatever she touches becomes unclean. And she has touched a Jewish rabbi. And so the rabbi has now become unclean because she touched him. And number two, she senses something different in her body. You know, when you experience a healing like this, after so many years of being sick, suddenly being healed, there is this awe, fear, this fear, which is a fear of awe. I mean, the kind of awe that you have within you. Oh, wow, something has happened within me. So that kind of fear, it is a nice feeling, but again, it is referred to as fear. Now, this woman, when she comes before Jesus and has this kind of feeling within her, she bursts out and she says, "This is what my story is." She tells him the whole truth. No, she is not afraid, she is not shy, she is not ashamed to talk in front of all the men. So many men around her. In spite of all that, she is not ashamed to tell them her testimony, give her testimony. So she blurts out, as it were, everything. And after listening to all this, Jesus says to her, says to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." So now Jesus pronounces the healing officially. Although she is already healed, Jesus pronounces it because of the crowd around him, because he wants to compliment this lady for her faith. And so she says, "Your faith has made you well. Go and be healed." So people around him now know that here is a woman who exercised her faith, and because of that, she is completely healed. So this is one story. And we continue with the previous story of Jairus. While he was still speaking to the woman, there came from the ruler's house some who said, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" But ignoring what they said, Jesus said to the ruler of the synagogue, "Do not fear, only believe." So this man, Jairus, already has faith within him. And now Jesus is kind of strengthening his faith. He says, "Don't worry, only believe. You're already believing in me. Continue to believe. Don't lose that faith." So Jesus goes with them to his house. And he allowed no one to follow him except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. When they came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, he saw a tumult and people weeping and wailing loudly. Very natural, no? A small child and it's dead. So immediately a crowd has gathered. Everyone has got the news. In a village, news spreads like wildfire. So the whole town, the whole village is there. And people are there wailing and lamenting. And when he entered, he said to them, "Why do you make a tumult and weep? The child is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. See? So the people who were crying now began to mock Jesus. They laughed at him. But he put them all outside and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him and went in where the child was. So now we have 5 eyewitnesses to the resurrection, to the rising of this girl. It's not resurrection, it is resuscitation, because resurrection is when you rise on your own accord. That is the resurrection. So Jesus rose by the power of God. He rose himself. Whereas here Jesus raises, he raises three people in the Gospels. He raises Lazarus, he raises the widow's son, and he raises the daughter of Jairus. So they are not people who experience resurrection, but they are brought back to life by Jesus. But according to Jesus, the girl is not dead, but sleeping. See, probably she is in a coma. But from what we understand, she is dead. Because she seems to be totally lifeless. So now there are 5 eyewitnesses, and all those people who laughed at Jesus are all waiting outside. And Jesus, taking her by the hand, he said to her, Talitha kum, Talitha kumi, in Aramaic, which means, little girl, I say to you, arise. And immediately the girl got up and walked. See, now Mark mentions she was 12 years of age. So we connect this 12 with the other 12, the woman who was suffering from a hemorrhage for 12 years. See? So, and they were immediately overcome with amazement. Obviously, no? I mean, just imagine in your own family, your daughter, your son, small, suddenly one day falls sick, and then you run to the doctor, and doctor gives up, no hope. And then you invite somebody, a healer or somebody to pray over your child, and the child suddenly wakes up. The kind of joy that you have, that's the kind of amazement that these people have, the 5 of them, Peter, James and John, and the parents of this girl, Jairus and his wife. And he strictly charged them that no one should know this. Okay, that is the messianic secret, because he doesn't want everyone to know. Because as I told you from the beginning, they might misunderstand the whole person of Jesus and his ministry. And told them to give her something to eat. Here comes Jesus's personal touch, Jesus's sensitivity. Jesus is very sensitive to needs of people. He knows this girl has been sleeping for a long time. She's not eaten something for a long time, eaten anything. So the first thing he thinks of is give her some food. Let her eat something nutritious. Give her something to eat, so that she'll be able to walk and be a little strengthened by that food. So that's the story now. So we have 2 stories. One is the woman with a hemorrhage and the daughter of Jairus being raised. Both these cases, the number 12 is there. 12 years of suffering and living for 12 years and then dying. Both, being set free, both being healed, and definitely so much of joy in the woman's family who was healed of hemorrhage and in the girl's family. Now Jesus has the last laugh. So all these people who are laughing, when they now come in and see the girl, Jesus can have the last laugh. They will stop laughing. They'll all be stunned. They'll all be stunned by what has happened. Jesus will quietly walk out of the house. But all these people will stop their laughing, stop their crying, stop their lamenting, and they'll be just stunned at what has happened. So imagine the situation after Jesus walks out of the house. So both these miracles, if you see, were because of the faith of the woman who was healed, faith of Jairus. And Jesus really appreciates their faith. Jesus strengthens them in their faith, and Jesus has mercy on them. Remember, any miracle of Jesus would happen because Jesus was concerned about those who came to him. He didn't work a miracle because he wanted to show off or because of any other vested interest, but only because he wanted to bring about God's mercy and build up the faith of the people. So both these people were already people of faith who exercise their faith, and Jesus rewards them for their faith, and they will definitely become disciples. They will not just leave it at this, they will definitely continue to walk with Jesus. Okay, we do not have any written record of what happened to all these people, but we definitely know that when you experience God's touch, you can't just let it go like that. Definitely, all these people. Last time we read about the man who was healed by the legion. Jesus asked him to go to the Decapolis and preach. Definitely, this man would have also continued to share his testimony and would have brought many people to Jesus. A man who was living in the graveyard is now proclaiming the name of Jesus, and many people are now coming to Jesus. The Samaritan woman was a prostitute or a woman who had several husbands, now becomes a wonderful testimony to all those in her village, and many of them experience Jesus. They say, it is not because of your testimony now, we ourselves have heard him. So many people come to Jesus through all these testimonies, through all these experiences, and definitely the word of God would have spread, and definitely the faith of the people would have grown. So we do not know about all this. That's why John writes in his gospel, he says, if all that Jesus said and did had to be written, I suppose the world itself cannot contain the books that would be written. So much has happened, we do not know. But definitely faith would be growing in all these places. Okay. Now, with these two stories, now we come back now to the hometown of Jesus. A totally different reaction. We've all been seeing faith stories, but now we're going to see lack of faith. Lack of faith. Jesus went away from there. I'm reading chapter 6, verse 1. He went away from there and came to his own country. That means he's coming back to Nazareth. And his disciples followed him. And on the Sabbath, he began to teach in the synagogue. And many who heard him were astonished, saying, where did this man get all this? What is the wisdom given to him? What mighty works are wrought by his hands? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, and brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us? And they took offense at him. Very strange, no, it seems. That is what happens, familiarity breeds contempt. Jesus has grown up in Nazareth. He's been working as a carpenter. They all know the story of Jesus, how as a young boy he was lost in the temple and how his parents had to go back. And then how he grew up, and then how he became a carpenter and followed in his father's footsteps. So they know all this. And now they cannot accept Jesus now preaching to them, doing wonders, doing miracles. No, how can this man do all this? What is all this? Where is all this coming from? Who is he? No, we know him. We know his origin. We know his family. How did this man suddenly become like this? And they are upset with him, because they cannot understand. And one of the most contradicted verses, and one of the verses that is quoted by Protestants, is Mark chapter 6, verse 3, saying that Mary is not a virgin and that Jesus had other brothers and sisters. This is the proof, they say. But actually, when you look up the Jewish tradition, we understand that the word brothers or sisters is used very commonly for cousins. And so we have here different possibilities. One is that Joseph through an earlier marriage had other children. One possibility. Second possibility, which we don't believe in, is that Mary and Joseph did have other children, which we don't believe. And the third possibility is that the brother of Joseph, that is Clopas, died, and so they were all living as a joint family in the house of Joseph. And so his children all grew up along with Jesus. And so they are the brothers and sisters that are being referred to. So that is why they are called brothers and sisters. They're all living in the same house after all. Those days it was all joint family. And so automatically they would be referred to as brother and sister. They wouldn't use the word cousin like we do in English. So in our own country, in all our Asian languages, we use the word brother and sister for cousins. So something similar we find in the Jewish culture as well. So that is why brother and sister is used. So not necessarily blood brother and blood sister. But again, there is no proof that Mary and Joseph did not have children. But we know from tradition that Mary was virgin, and she herself has said it. So we know that they're all cousins. And so here are these people who cannot accept what Jesus is doing. And so Jesus said to them, a prophet is not without...
Nirmal, at this stage, I just need to ask one question.
Yeah.
See, at the time of his dying, if he had brothers and sisters who were his own blood, he would have asked for them to look after his mother.
Yes.
Why should
he ask John?
He asked John.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah, that is what we know. We know that they are not his own blood brothers and sisters. But this is for the sake of argument. Many Protestants, they always come up. So you can tell them this. Why would Jesus give Mary to somebody else when she had her own other children? She did not have other children. That is the reason why Jesus hands her over to John and says, take care of my mother. So knowing that Mary is now alone, she does not have, because by the time Jesus is crucified and so on, all these people have also grown up and they have their own families and they've gone away. So if they were his own brothers and sisters, definitely Mary would have gone and stayed with one of them. She would have not had to go and stay with John or with the other disciples. So that very clearly tells us that this was the only son. So after she lost her son, she had no other go but to go with somebody else. Yeah, right. So Jesus said to them, a prophet is not without honor except in his own country and among his own kin and in his own house. Jesus is just quoting an old saying. So everyone knows this, in your own house, people don't give you the respect you deserve because they know you inside out, as it were, and they say, I know you, so nothing great about you. Whereas people outside, they know what you are really worth. People at home, they know your worth, but you don't get that kind of appreciation and honor in your own house because that's how it is. That is the law of nature. Right. Therefore, he could do no mighty work there, except that he laid his hands upon a few sick people and healed them. So here you see that if Jesus has to work a miracle, the basic element required is faith. So without faith, there are no miracles. This also brings us to the point in our lives today that many things, many miracles don't happen because we don't have that faith. In the early church, in the early Christian community, there were so many miracles. Why do they all slowly die down? Is because we have come down in our faith. And wherever there is faith, there are miracles happening. So there are reports we hear now and then of miracles happening. And all that happens only because people exercise faith. So Jesus is unable to do anything because of the lack of faith. and he marveled because of their unbelief. You see, Jesus marvels at their unbelief. He thinks, okay, they've seen me, they've seen all that I've done, and yet they don't want to believe. So he marvels at them. So although he was the Son of God, he was also human. And so in his human nature, it makes him think, why are they not believing in me? They have seen all that others have seen. While other people can believe, why are these people not believing? So he feels, there's something strange that they don't believe. So he marvels because of their unbelief. Why is this sentence written? It's written because Jesus really felt that they don't really believe in him, and it happens with those who are close to him. That makes things all the more worse, because someone whom you love, someone whom you really care for, these people don't really give you the respect and honor that is due to you. Other people, unknown people, are doing it for you, but your own people don't trust you, don't believe what you're doing. So it kind of pains his heart. Yet he goes on, and he went about among the villages teaching. So he continues, he goes about teaching in the villages. And he called to him the 12 and began to send them out 2 by 2 and gave them authority over the unclean spirits. Again, here in this chapter, we have one more sandwich narrative. We have now the mission of the 12, where he will send the apostles 2 by 2, and then they will come back. In between, we have the story of the death of John the Baptist. Mark is putting it here to kind of show us that this is a foreshadow of what will happen to Jesus and his disciples. What happened to John will also happen to the apostolos and to Jesus, to the apostles who are sent, and to Jesus himself who was sent by the Father. Okay. So what does Jesus do? He sends his disciples 2 by 2. He doesn't send them alone. He could have sent the 12 alone. Not a big number after all, but he sends them in twos because they need to reaffirm one another. There are so many reasons why he sends them out in twos. It's always better to go on a mission in twos than to go alone. So Jesus knows this, and therefore he sends them in twos. And he gives them authority over the unclean spirits. And he charged them to take nothing for their journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money in their belts, but to wear sandals and not to put on 2 tunics. Something so beautiful we see in Jesus and in his mission. When Jesus sends his disciples, this is how he sends them, in utter simplicity and poverty. And that is how the early missionaries also went out into the world. But today we see missionaries depend a lot on material wealth, depend a lot on all these worldly things, not realizing that God is their provider. It's very sad that today many people, many religious, depend a lot on their bank balance, depend a lot on the things that they have. Things have changed a lot, but a true missionary will always do what Jesus says, to live on just the bare necessities, have the basics alone, knowing that God will provide. When the French missionaries came to Tamil Nadu for the Madurai mission, they had a very, very simple life. They did not have anything surplus, and they lived a very simple Spartan life. So that is how God really blessed their mission and multiplied all that they did, and God took care of them very beautifully, and God will continue to take care of all those who go in his name and proclaim his name. But we need to put our trust in the Lord. That is why he says, don't put on even 2 tunics, one is enough. God will provide, wherever you go. He said to them, when you enter a house, stay there until you leave the place. And if any place will not receive you and they refuse to hear you when you leave, shake off the dust that is on your feet for a testimony against them. What Jesus says here, we will also see in the Acts of the Apostles, that they will literally dust the feet and leave the town. Before they leave the town, they will shake off the dust. We see that happening in the Acts of the Apostles. Okay. So they went out and preached that men should repent. And they cast out many demons and anointed with oil many that were sick and healed them. So all these people who are sent on mission, the six teams as it were, they did all that Jesus asked them to do, and they were very successful. While this is happening, now we have the story of John the Baptist's death coming in. King Herod heard of it, for Jesus' name had become known. Some said, John the Baptizer has been raised from the dead. That is why these powers are at work in him. So King Herod is now hearing about Jesus, about his popularity, about all that is happening, and he is very curious. So he's saying, John the Baptist probably come back from the dead. That is why, we see all those things happening in the person of Jesus. But others said it is Elijah, and others said it is a prophet like one of the prophets of old. So different opinions from different people Herod gets. When Herod heard of it, he said, John, whom I beheaded, has been raised. It's very clear. For Herod, whatever he hears about Jesus, he says, I know it is John himself who has come back, because I know how powerful John was. I know what a good man he was. And now, although I killed him, he has again come back to life. That is his belief. What is the background? They say, for Herod had sent and seized John and bound him in prison for the sake of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, because he had married her. So Herod commits adultery openly, and John had the courage to tell him that what he was doing was wrong. He was living an immoral life, and that this should not be. For John had said to Herod, it is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife. And Herodias had a grudge against him. So now Herod is not angry. This lady, Herodias, is now angry because of John. So she wanted to kill him, but she could not. It's not easy to kill a prophet like that, because Herod feared John, knowing that he was a righteous and holy man, and kept him safe. So she is not able to kill John or do anything, because Herod is protecting him. Because Herod knows that John is really a good man and a righteous man, and so he protects him. But now she is trying to see what is Herod's weakness, so that somehow she can destroy this man who is constantly being a nuisance to them, because he's reminding them of their sin, reminding them of their immoral life, and she cannot stand it. You see, when you're doing something wrong, Jesus says, people who are living in darkness, when they see the light, they don't want the light. They want to shut off the light. If you're living inside a cave, living in darkness, and suddenly one day somebody shines a torchlight inside, you say, put it off, it's hurting your eyes. That is how it is when you're living in sin. You don't want to be told that you're living in sin. You don't want to face the truth. You don't want to listen to anything that is of the truth. You want to shut it off. And so this man, John, was into her ears, literally annoying her by telling her the truth, by telling her what was wrong with her, and by asking her to repent. So she could not tolerate this. So she was looking for a loophole somehow to destroy him, looking for a way to kill him. Now comes an opportunity. When Herod heard John, he was much perplexed, and yet he heard him gladly. But an opportunity came for this lady Herodias, when Herod on his birthday gave a banquet for his courtiers and officers and the leading men of Galilee. For when Herodias' daughter came in and danced, she pleased Herod and his guests. And the king said to the girl, "Ask me for whatever you wish, and I will grant it." And he vowed to her, "Whatever you ask me, I will give you even half of my kingdom." This man, Herod, is so drunk, and in his drunken state, he's so taken up by what this girl has done, by her dancing. This girl has kind of seduced Herod, and in the drunken state, he says, "Ask me whatever you want." And what does she do? She makes use of this opportunity. She went out and said to her mother, "What shall I ask?" She said, "The head of John the Baptizer." Now comes the opportunity, the chance of a lifetime. Finish off this man. And she came in immediately with haste to the king and asked, saying, "I want you to give me at once the head of John the Baptist on a platter." Finished. The king had to agree. The king must have really been upset, but then couldn't do anything about it. King was exceedingly sorry, but because of his oaths and his guests, he did not want to break his word to her. Immediately the king sent a soldier of the guard and gave orders to bring his head. He went and beheaded him in the prison and brought his head on a platter and gave it to the girl, and the girl gave it to her mother. See? So her plan is now executed. She has got what she wanted. But will she be happy? No, definitely not. No. So John will continue to speak to her. And now Herod knows that John is continuing to speak to him through the person of Jesus. So that guilty conscience is there. Right? So with this, now we come to the last verse. When his disciples heard of it, they came and took his body and laid it in a tomb. Okay, with this story ends. Okay, when the disciples of John heard that John had been killed, they came and took his body and laid it in a tomb. So with that, the story is over. Now comes the story of the apostles who were sent on a mission. The apostles returned to Jesus and told him all that they had done and taught. You see, so in another place we will hear the apostles coming back to Jesus very thrilled at themselves and telling him, we did this, we did that, the demons, ran away because we pronounced your name. On hearing your name, these demons ran away. We healed so many people. They will be all thrilled, and when they are in that excited mood, Jesus will tell them, I saw Satan falling like lightning from heaven. Yet do not rejoice because the demons were obedient to you, but rather rejoice that your names are written in heaven. Okay, so we'll read that in the other Gospels. But here, Mark doesn't mention that. All that Mark says is, see, Jesus said to them, "Come away by yourselves to a lonely place and rest a while." Very, very important for a disciple. Because when you're on mission, you definitely need a time of quiet. Otherwise, you cannot continue. You will get burnt out and you cannot replenish your batteries. You need to recharge yourself. So, it is very important that you have a quiet time and a time of rest. So, Jesus warns them, come away by yourselves to a lonely place and rest a while. For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. So busy life. When life is very busy, Jesus tells them, you must steal some time for yourself, some quiet time. Very important for every human being, especially when you're on mission. You need to take care of yourself. So Jesus was a very practical person, and he gave instructions to them which are very important, and this is something the disciples will learn from Jesus. And they went away in the boat to a lonely place by themselves. So you see, now they're listening to what Jesus said. They're going away. But what happens? Now many saw them going and knew them, And they ran there on foot from all the towns and got there ahead of them. So the only quiet time that they got was between the two shores, you know. So while they're going from one shore to another, they must have been really quiet. While some of them were rowing the boat, others were resting. That's the only rest they had. Because the moment they reached the shore, as he went ashore, he saw a great throng, and he had compassion on them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. You see, this is the compassion of Jesus. When Jesus sees the crowd, the time when Jesus was there, uh, and even earlier, the leaders of Israel never bothered about their people. The people were not cared for at all. There was no real shepherd for them to kind of take care of them, take care of their spiritual needs and of their material needs. Nothing. They were only being cheated. They were only being taxed. They were only being punished. Nothing good was done for them. The people were ignored. Even the so-called spiritual leaders were only trying to make money out of the people. So these people were harassed. That is why Jesus, when he sees them, he has compassion on them, because he can see that these people are just going from pillar to post, just knowing what to do with their lives, just going on aimlessly. And he began to teach them many things. So when you read a sentence like this, Jesus began to teach, that means he's going to teach them at length. So he's going to give them a very long discourse which could go on for some time. It's probably like a retreat that Jesus was doing. It's not just one talk that Jesus is giving, probably a series of talks that Jesus is going to do. And when it grew late, his disciples came to him and said, "This is a lonely place and the hour is now late. Send them away to go to the country and villages round about and buy themselves something to eat." So the disciples realized that, these people, if they continue to stay, they'll all faint, they won't be able to eat, and they better go. They're reminding Jesus, send them away, because otherwise they'll have to kind of take care of their needs, get food for them. That is their fear. And their fear comes true when Jesus tells them, you give them something to eat. Finished. Now where are they going to get food? So they say, shall we go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give it to them to eat? Jesus, what are you saying? Shall we put a lot of money and just buy some food? Jesus said to them, how many loaves do you have? Go and see. When they found out, they said, 5 loaves and 2 fish. That's all we have. And he commanded them all to sit down by companies upon the green grass. So they sat down in groups by hundreds and by 50s. Probably they were all just standing, walking, moving about, a little restless, and he makes them sit down because it's time to eat. The Jews, when they ate, they would all recline. So Jesus is making them sit down in groups, probably as families, as cousins. They're all going to sit down. And taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and blessed and broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples and set before the people. And he divided the 2 fish among them all. And they all ate and were satisfied. Imagine, 5 loaves and 2 fish. So many people in the crowd, and all this is being distributed. And everyone ate and were satisfied. They did not just get a sample. No, they were all eating to their heart's content. And they took up 12 baskets full of broken. How do you get 12 baskets? Because of the 12 apostles. There are 12 apostles. Each one is asked to take a basket. They must have all had some basket with them. And then Jesus says, go and pick up the leftovers. And they took up 12 baskets full of broken pieces and of the fish. And those who ate the loaves were 5,000 men. 5,000 men, you're not counting women and children. So probably if you add them also, there will be close to 10,000. Imagine 10,000 people, like a huge convention. Jesus is fed with just 5 loaves and 2 fish. Unimaginable, no? So the disciples, when they see this, they must have been really stunned. What is this? 5 loaves and 2 fish, and so many people have eaten, and now there are leftovers. This must have really made an impact on the disciples. That is why all the Gospels have written about the multiplication of the loaves. Immediately, he made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side to Bethsaida while he dismissed the crowds. You must understand why Jesus is doing this. He doesn't want the disciples to tarry, to stay there, and the people come and tell them, hey, wow, 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 how did all this happen? How come we all ate? And they will all get carried away by all this. So he sends them away quickly, and Jesus dismisses the crowds. Jesus knows how to manage a crowd. He sends the crowd. He says, go, 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 go. It's getting late. He sends them away. Because Jesus will not be carried away by what the people think or say. He will only make sure that they go back home without delaying, without staying back, without asking him questions. He just wants them to go because they've heard enough. All they need to do is go back home and share with their families, with their friends, all that they've heard. So he sends them away. He dismisses the crowd. And what does he do after that? After he had taken leave of them, he went up on the mountain to pray. See? He went up on the mountain to pray. Okay. So I'll stop with this today. After he had taken leave of them, he went up on the mountain to pray. This is what happens to Jesus. After a big miracle like this, Jesus goes away for his quiet time. He also needs to recharge his batteries. He needs to come back to the Father and thank the Father for being with him, and to also offer himself to the Father. Because we read in the Gospel of John, after this incident, the people were so taken up that they wanted to crown him king. But Jesus vanishes, he escapes, as it were. He runs away into the hills, into the mountains. So the same thing we read here. He escapes into the mountains. He goes there. He doesn't want the people to come after him and crown him king or do anything to him, because they now know that he is like the prophet Elijah. He's like one of the prophets of old who multiplied the bread. So he says, no, no, no. They shouldn't misunderstand. All this should not happen to me. My Father has sent me on a certain mission, and therefore I need to go. And so Jesus takes leave of them and he escapes into the mountains to be with the Father. Okay. So we'll conclude with this today.